Nick Shell, Living Legend of Hair Loss. I'm going to respond to this comment, and it's pretty long, from our friend Joe N. on a video I made called, "But the Male Pattern Baldness Gene is Passed by the Mother." Here, I'm going to have to put my glasses on because that's how long of a comment it is, and I can't just skim it. I kind of have to read the whole thing. I'll read it pretty quickly. Quote, "I think over the next 200 years or so, balding will be much less common. The reason why male pattern baldness is so dominant today, like you said, is because all throughout history, even up until recent times, most men had kids very young before reaching an advanced stage of hair loss. So they were able to attract a mate while they still had hair. Nowadays, people are getting married and having kids at a much later age." And by the way, for me, my wife, I was 27 when I got married and 29 and a half when our son was born. So, I mean, that's definitely later than, even 20 years ago, 30 years ago. The rise of feminism also plays a big role in this too. 100 years ago, women were mostly looking for a man with financial stability more than anything, but now when the woman can get a career herself and basically do anything, any profession that a man could do, she has no need to look for a caretaker type of man when compared to previous times, and she can put more of an emphasis on looks. With social media being massive, women have too much access to so much more men now than ever before, and has so much more better options than women from older generations. So why would she go for a guy who is bald at 25 rather than a full head guy? It's not like she's limited to men only in her vicinity anymore. That's what sucks, Nick. Being born in the 90s or later and balding young is much worse than balding when you were in the 60s or 70s. The times have changed, bro. It's tough out here, end quote. All right, so here is my response to this. Leave it to me to put a positive spin on this. I feel that this opinion is like way over here, and I'm gonna try to address this a little bit more, like, even if it's, granted it's based on my own opinion, but I think anytime we're dealing with a thought process that is so far one way, that's not reality. So what I'm gonna do is just try to bring this over to the center a little bit more. So the idea is, I was born in 1981. I'm lucky enough to be old enough to have met my wife, not having to depend on an app, but I met her in real life. I saw her in a crowded room, I talked to her, the rest is history. It had nothing to do with being online. And yes, I was 25, I was Norwood 2 with no diffuse thinning at that point. Not that she was paying attention, but that was my reality. So compared now to a guy who's 25 and noticeably balding, in an age of everyone looking for confirmation of themselves and their own identity on their smartphones, and dating is this, swiping either way. So yeah, I can understand where you're coming from on that. I can understand the challenge on that for sure. And I totally agree with you. People are getting married later in life, which gives men more hair to lose in the process. So let's start out with the opening statement of that comment. I think over the next 200 years or so, balding would be much less common. The reason why male pattern baldness is so dominant today, like you said, is because all throughout history. So basically, if I'm understanding this right, what's being said is the men with the balding gene, no one's going to mate with them. That's the takeaway I'm understanding. Maybe I'm misunderstanding this, but the understanding is because women have a choice to get married later, by the time they're ready to get married, maybe around 30, then they're like, oh, well, who still has hair? Because only the guys with hair am I going to marry. And then basically natural selection, survival of the fittest, means the bald guys don't get mated with, is the concept here. So, does anybody agree with that? To me, that's a very grim view of things. And the concept too, and I will agree that women can do a lot more things now. Women can do any kind of career they want to now. And they are, and that's a great thing. And it is true that they are more focused on their careers than before. But does that take away the fact of what they're looking for from men? Now, I'll give you an example. If you haven't watched the video where I'm sitting at my office showing you all the money that I make, I have 5 side hustles in addition to my actual job. I make good money, not only in my actual job where you see me as the king of corporate, but with all 5 of my side hustles. Together, I make pretty good money. But what's interesting is, my wife, her one job alone, it's like which one of us makes more money? Me or my wife? And I guess we'll know in a couple weeks when we do our taxes. But overall, we're like this on who makes more money, who brings in more money in this household. But if you take away all my side jobs, she makes a lot more money than I do. It's only because of my 5 side jobs that I'm able to compete with her. So it's interesting, yeah. And that's becoming normal. It's normal that, like, in fact, a lot of my guy friends, the wife makes more money than the husband does. So I totally agree that in modern day, women are less dependable on men as far as being the breadwinners. I'll accept that. But what I will tell you, though, is that still, when we are looking at what attracts women to men and men to women, they're not the same. Now, they're not the same. Women are still looking for, even if they're not looking for someone to make more money than they are, financial stability in the same way they did before, they're still looking for psychological security. They are. Women are still looking for a man who is going to help confirm their identity, and that they are loved, and that they are listened to, and that they're worth being paid attention to, that they're worth getting up in the morning and spending an hour fixing their hair and getting dressed and changing their outfit 5 times and all those things. They're still looking for a man who's strong enough to be a father to their future children. So when women, as far as how they're attracted to men, especially if we're talking about marrying a man, you're being judged on a lot of other criteria that I think a lot of people aren't aware of. What men tend to do, especially young men, they think, how am I attracted to women? How they look. And that's largely true. Men are more attracted to females based on how they look, but women are not attracted to the men the same way. We are judged on all these things that have nothing to do with our looks. Instead, we're judged on our ambitions. Now, it doesn't matter that we can make more money than she can. What matters is this a solid guy that's confident in himself and that would take care of me even beyond the money, that would be a good father and a faithful husband, and still be able to make me laugh and help me believe in myself, make me feel loved. Those are the things that actually matter. Now, this is the wisdom of a 37-year-old man who's been married 10 and a half years and has 2 kids. This is the wisdom in reality. And I hope that this can translate, because this is the best truth you're ever going to hear about this subject. But I think that when you are 25 and noticeably balding, and you assume that women are attracted to you, especially with marriage eyes, in the same way, if that were reality, then I would see your concern. But I know reality. And reality isn't this the way it was presented in the video. It's actually a different version of reality. Now, I know I've said recently and many times, anything you believe about hair loss is true in your mind. So as long as you believe that you're at a major disadvantage because of those reasons, then you absolutely are. But if you're willing to see from a different perspective other than your own, from the female perspective that you can't relate to, I think I can say I've got a better understanding of the female perspective, because to successfully be married to a woman for 10 and a half years and have kids, 2 kids, I understand how women think a lot better than I ever could have imagined back before I was married. So, and not to mention, if we want to say, well, guys that were born in the 90s, they've got a disadvantage because of all these things. Consider this, though. Yeah, it was implied that basically it was better for a man to be balding who was born in the 50s, 60s, or whatever, because he wouldn't have to go through this. Well, also those guys didn't have the same advantage of being cool if they shaved their head. It was actually more of a social stigma, like this guy is basically a criminal or some kind of outcast. It had a negative connotation to it. It doesn't anymore. A lot of men helped change that for us. Should I instantly give credit to Vin Diesel? I really think that the early 2000s he became popular, and I think he made it popular. And since then, I think that's helped us out a lot. So I would say there's never been a better time to be bald, because it doesn't have a negative connotation. It has a very masculine, confident message that it sends out, because not all men are willing to shave their head. A lot of men get caught up on, I don't have the right head shape or whatever, and they'll think of a reason not to. Meanwhile, other men are taking advantage of this concept that this is perceived as strong, confident, and attractive to shave your hair off, granted that you take care of yourself and you work out. So that's my version of reality. Anything you believe about hair loss is true in your own mind. That's what I believe in my mind. The video started with hearing what was in someone else's mind right here. So with these two people having these two different views, there's what, like nearly 7,000 of you watching? What do the rest of you have to say? Right here in the comments.